Hello, explorers, the brave souls who venture into the unknown, charting new territories, pushing the limits of human endurance, and, sometimes, hilariously messing up along the way. History might hail them as heroes, but let's not forget their more human moments. After all, even the most seasoned adventurers can have their facepalm days. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe for more tales that bring history to life in the most unexpected ways. 1. Christopher Columbus, the guy who couldn't find India. Let's start with the king of geographical blunders himself, Christopher Columbus. Columbus set out to find a new trade route to India, but ended up stumbling upon the Americas instead. Now, discovering a whole new continent might sound impressive, but imagine insisting to your dying day that it's still India. Columbus was so adamant he'd reached Asia that he called the locals Indians, a term that stuck for centuries. It's like ordering pizza, getting sushi instead, and refusing to believe it isn't a margarita. 2. Vasco da Gama. Spicy route, bitter detours. Vasco da Gama's mission was simple: find a sea route to India. And he did, after an 11,000-mile detour around Africa. Along the way, he mistook Madagascar for a land rich with spices and precious gems. When the locals offered bananas instead, Vasco was reportedly so disappointed he almost abandoned the mission. Imagine risking scurvy, storms, and sea monsters, only to discover what you've been craving is a banana smoothie. 3. Marco Polo, the ultimate exaggerator. Marco Polo's travels inspired countless adventurers, but let's not overlook his penchant for creative storytelling. Marco claimed he saw unicorns in what is now Indonesia. Spoiler alert, they were rhinos. He described them as ugly brutes with scaly skin, and none of the charm of a mythical unicorn. You've got to wonder how many people signed up for dangerous expeditions expecting magical creatures and ended up with grumpy horned tanks. 4. Robert Falcon Scott, a freezer full of bad decisions. Poor Robert Falcon Scott, the guy who led an expedition to the South Pole but came second to Roald Amundsen. Scott's list of mistakes reads like an Arctic survival guide of what not to do. He brought Siberian ponies instead of dogs. Spoiler, ponies aren't great in freezing conditions, packed canned food with faulty seals, and underestimated the brutality of Antarctic weather. It's like training for a marathon in flip-flops and eating nothing but potato chips for energy. 5. Sir John Franklin, the original Arctic horror story. Sir John Franklin's search for the Northwest Passage ended in disaster when his ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, got trapped in ice. But let's talk about his choice of supplies. 8,000 tins of poorly sealed canned goods that likely caused lead poisoning. Imagine trying to survive the Arctic while hallucinating from lead exposure. Franklin's crew ended up resorting to, let's just say, extreme culinary measures. History remembers Franklin as a cautionary tale in overpacking the wrong things. 6. Percy Fawcett, lost in the Amazon. Forever. Percy Fawcett was obsessed with finding the legendary city of Z, a supposed lost civilization in the Amazon. Armed with vague maps and a whole lot of optimism, he vanished into the jungle in 1925. His mistake? Bringing his son and a friend on an expedition that had all the planning of a last-minute camping trip. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened to them. Lesson learned: if the map looks like a toddler's drawing, maybe don't trust it. 7. Hernán Cortés, lost in translation. When Hernán Cortés arrived in Mexico, he burned his ships to motivate his men to conquer the Aztec Empire. Bold move, right? Except he didn't account for the massive communication barriers. Cortez's interpreter, La Malinche, was good, but misunderstandings were inevitable. One misstep could have turned a greeting into a declaration of war. Cortés gambled his entire career on vibes and Google Translate, 16th century edition. 8. Henry Hudson. Who needs a backup plan? Henry Hudson's obsession with finding a shortcut to Asia ended with him being set adrift by his own crew in Hudson Bay. Why? Because he was so stubborn about continuing his doomed search that his men mutinied. Being left to float aimlessly in freezing waters is a harsh way to learn that flexibility is a virtue. Fun fact, Hudson's Bay was named after him, as if history said, "Here lies Henry, he tried." 9. Magellan, the shortcut that wasn't. Ferdinand Magellan, the man credited with leading the first circumnavigation of the globe, wasn't exactly a GPS expert. His mission? To find a quick way to the Spice Islands. Instead, he spent 38 days battling the unpredictable and freezing waters of what is now the Strait of Magellan. When they finally made it through, half the crew probably wished they'd just stayed home. It's the 16th century equivalent of choosing a shortcut that adds hours to your road trip. 10. Lewis and Clark. Grizzly bears are not friendly. Meriwether. Lewis and William Clark's famous expedition across the American West had its share of missteps, but none as terrifying as their encounters with grizzly bears. Despite being warned by Native Americans about the bears' ferocity, they approached these massive creatures with, let's say, unearned confidence. The result? A series of chaotic chases that left the explorers scrambling for their lives. Lesson learned. Don't poke the bear. Literally. 11. David Livingstone, lost in Africa, found by H.M. Stanley. David Livingstone, the famous Scottish missionary and explorer, had a knack for getting lost in the African wilderness. After years of exploring, he vanished into the interior, and for a while, no one knew what happened to him. Enter Henry Morton Stanley, the journalist sent to find him, with the famous greeting, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume?" Livingstone had been wandering for so long that when Stanley found him, the explorer reportedly had a new appreciation for civilization. Some of his companions perhaps preferred being lost. 12. Sir Richard Francis Burton, the misstep in Mecca. Sir Richard Francis Burton was a renowned British explorer and linguist, known for his daring expeditions in Africa and Asia. One of his more humorous mistakes came during his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1853, where he attempted to secretly enter the holy city while disguised as a Muslim pilgrim. The problem? Burton, a man of many talents, didn't realize the importance of blending in with the local customs, especially when it came to his hygiene. Despite his failure to remain undetected, his exploration efforts were still groundbreaking. Conclusion. Explorers may be remembered for their bravery, but their mistakes remind us they were as flawed as anyone else. These blunders turned them into legends and gave us plenty of laughs along the way. So, whether you're planning your next big adventure or just trying to find your car keys, take comfort in knowing that even history's greats had their moments of epic confusion. And hey, don't forget to subscribe.
Beer, the frothy nectar of the gods, a liquid companion to Friday nights, heartbreaks, and everything in between. But have you ever wondered how this bubbly brew went from a humble refreshment to a magic potion people drank and bathed in, all while thinking it could cure ailments, grant eternal youth, or even ward off evil spirits? That's right, beer was more than a drink. It was an experience steeped in strange beliefs and hilarious superstitions. Before we dive in, pun intended, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on more fascinating, weird, and occasionally foamy topics like this one. Now, let's pop the top off this frothy history lesson. Beer, the multitasker of ancient times. Long before beer became the go-to beverage for watching football, it was a superstar in ancient rituals, healing practices, and personal hygiene routines. People believed beer could do it all. Heal your ailments, clean your body, improve your luck, and maybe even help you find love. It was like the Swiss Army knife of ancient liquids. Bathing in beer, a luxury spa experience, or just plain weird? Imagine this. You're living in medieval Europe. Your neighbor stinks because, well, soap isn't a thing yet. But you're ahead of your time, soaking in a tub full of beer. Why? Because you believe it'll cure your skin ailments, make you smell amazing, and maybe, just maybe, help you live longer. Beer baths weren't just about cleanliness, or a lack thereof. They were rooted in some wild theories. Ancient Egyptians believed that hops, the magical ingredient in beer, had healing properties. So, naturally, bathing in it was like swimming in liquid health insurance. The only problem? No one told them that soaking in a beer bath might leave you smelling less like a flower and more like a brewery explosion. Even in modern times, beer spas are a thing. Yes, you can still pay good money to sit in a tub of beer. Whether it's for the antioxidants or the Instagram likes, the tradition lives on. Drinking beer for health. Medieval medicine 101. When life gave medieval folks illnesses, they reached for beer. Why? Because it was safer than water. Back in the day, water wasn't exactly filtered or bottled. Drinking it was like playing Russian roulette with your digestive system. Beer, on the other hand, was boiled during the brewing process, killing off nasty bacteria. So, technically, it was healthier than water. But it didn't stop there. People believed beer could cure everything from the common cold to a broken heart. Got a headache? Drink beer. Feeling sad? Drink beer. Lost your favorite goat? You guessed it, drink beer. Monks, the original brewmasters, even prescribed beer as a remedy. They called it liquid bread because it was packed with nutrients. Honestly, the monks were onto something. If carbs could heal the soul, a pint of beer was like an IV drip of happiness. Beer versus evil spirits, a battle for the ages. If you think beer is just for happy hours, think again. In ancient times, it was considered a powerful weapon against evil spirits. Yep, people believed that offering beer to the gods or sprinkling it around their homes could keep demons at bay. In Norse mythology, beer was practically a VIP guest at every party in Valhalla. Warriors drank it to celebrate their victories and to ensure the gods didn't smite them with bad luck. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, people left bowls of beer as offerings to spirits. Because nothing says "please don't haunt me" like a pint of lager. Beer baths and beauty, the OG Instagram trend. Let's not forget the beauty benefits of beer, or so people thought. In the 19th century, women believed beer could give them luscious locks and radiant skin. Hair masks made with beer were all the rage. It's like today's avocado toast. Trendy, questionable, and kind of expensive. To be fair, beer does contain vitamins and proteins that are good for hair. But bathing in it? That's a whole new level of commitment. It's like saying, I want shiny hair, but I also want to smell like a frat party. Superstitions brewing in the mug. If you think beer culture is quirky now, wait until you hear about the superstitions that brewed around it. 1. Spilled beer was a sign from the universe. Spilling beer was considered a major faux pas, not just because it wasted precious booze, but because it was thought to bring bad luck. In some cultures, spilling beer meant you were about to face financial ruin or a tragic love life. So next time you knock over your pint, just remember, you're not clumsy, you're cursed. 2. Froth told your fortune. Ever stared at the frothy head of your beer and wondered what it could tell you about your future? No. Well, medieval beer drinkers did. They believed the amount and consistency of foam on your beer revealed your destiny. Thick foam, prosperity is on its way. No foam, better start praying. 3. Beer for the dead. In some cultures, beer was offered to the deceased to ensure their journey to the afterlife was smooth. Imagine dying and your loved ones send you off with a keg instead of flowers. Now that's a funeral worth attending. Beer and romance. Swipe right on the ale. Beer wasn't just a drink or a bath, it was a certified love potion. In ancient Germany, brides bathed in beer before their wedding to ensure fertility and marital bliss. Because what says forever yours better than the aroma of fermented barley wafting down the aisle? Romantic superstitions didn't stop there. In some cultures, couples shared beer as a bonding ritual, believing it strengthened their love and sealed their connection. Forget candlelit dinners or expensive gifts. Sharing a pint was the ultimate gesture of affection. Beer was the original date night essential, proving that sometimes true love is just a mug away. Cheers to a frothy and fermented happily ever after, the not-so-scientific science behind beer beliefs. While most of these practices might sound absurd today, they made sense at the time, kind of. People didn't have access to modern medicine or Google, so they relied on trial and error. If beer seemed to make you feel better, it was obviously magic, right? But let's be real, Most of these beliefs were just an excuse to drink more beer. And honestly, who can blame them? Life was tough. If soaking in beer or offering it to spirits made the days a little brighter, why not go for it? Beer, from ancient superstitions to modern obsessions. Today, beer is still celebrated, though mostly for its taste and ability to bring people together. While we've left behind the superstitions and rituals, beer baths and beer-inspired beauty products are making a comeback. So maybe the ancients were onto something after all. Conclusion: the history of beer is as bubbly as the drink itself. From curing illnesses to warding off evil spirits, people have believed some truly wild things about this beloved beverage. And while we might not be bathing in it or offering it to ghosts anymore, beer continues to hold a special place in our hearts and our mugs. So next time you crack open a cold one, raise your glass to the ancient superstitions and the people who believed beer was the answer to all of life's problems. After all, in a world full of questions, sometimes the best answer is just beer. If you enjoyed this trip through history's quirks, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Cheers.